Alrighty everyone, welcome to day 1 of Adventure Code 2022. A few seconds here before the puzzle released. Fingers crossed the site doesn't crash on me. I will attempt to read this puzzle here. I'm going to go in and grab my input as soon as I can. That way I have it. I have my base code and the base input file all ready to go. 7 seconds. Let's get ready. Who's ready for some Adventure Code? First puzzle is released right about now. I got in. Let's just grab our puzzle inputs before anything bad happens. Sweet. Alright, day 1. Santa's reindeer typically eat regular reindeer food, but they need a lot of magical energy to deliver presents on Christmas. For that, their favorite snack is a special type of star fruit that only grows deep in the jungle. Okay, I think it's just the backstory. Okay. The jungle must be too overgrown and difficult to navigate in vehicles or access from the air. The elves' expedition traditionally goes on foot. As your boats approach land, the elves begin taking inventory of their supplies. One important consideration is food, in particular the number of calories each elf is carrying, which is the puzzle input. Your elves take turns writing down the number of calories contained by the various meals, snacks, rations, etc. they've brought with them, one item per line. Each elf separates their own inventory from the previous elf's inventory, if any, by a blank line. For example, the list represents the calories of food carried by the elves. The first elf is carrying calories a total of 6, so let's get each one. Makes sense. Cool. In case the elves get hungry and need extra snacks, they need to know which elf to ask. They'd like to know how many calories are being carried by the elf carrying the most calories, an example above. So we need to... How many calories... we need to find the elf with the most... Find the elf carrying the most calories. So this one's gonna be pretty easy. For your inputs, we're gonna have to go through and we're gonna have to split this up into a list. Actually, we don't have to do a list. We can just do a list of integers. Is what we'll do. And this is gonna be elf cals. This is how many calories each elf is carrying, and we're gonna go through each one. I do have a method to convert this input into integers, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. So we're just going to do int cal is going to be equal to integer parseInt of s. So it's going to be taking a line, it's going to parse an integer. I need a rolling count of what elf we're on. And then we're also, no, we just need to count to this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the calorie at the current line, and we're going to access the elf calories. And actually, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna say the calorie of the elf here is gonna be equal to elf cals dot size is greater than no, if its size is equal to elf number, we are just going to do 0, otherwise elf cals get elf number. Cool. What is this? Oh, I think that kind of ignore that. So now we have the elf's calories, so now we can do is we can update it. So we're going to do elf cals, and we're going to do set, and we're going to do the elf number, and we're going to set it to be elf calorie plus whatever this calorie is. So this will go through and it will count, or basically it'll sum up all the elves calories. All we need to do is now we just need to find the largest one. We also need to check though is if our input s is equal to nothing. Actually, we'll do an s.trim just in case. This is in JavaScript. Trim. We'll do a quick trim here. If it is, we will simply increase the elf number and then continue on with this loop. At the very end, we have this elf calories. All we need to do now is we need to find the largest. And this is just going to be for int I in elf calories if I is greater than largest is going to be equal I. And at the very end here we can just do a lap of I, and this should in theory No, not of largest, sorry. And if we go ahead and run our Advent to code here, of course, it's going to take a second to build, but once this builds and runs, I should have built this before, we are going to get index out of bounds. Oh, you can't set. Okay, so we're going to change this up then. You can't just set like this, so I'm going to do this instead. I'm just going to add a 0, and that will solve that problem. Should solve that problem. There we go. And we get that as our answer. Dump it in here. Hey, we got a gold star. Part 2. By the time you calculate the answer to the elf's question, they've already realized that the elf carrying the most calories of food might eventually run out of snacks. To avoid this unacceptable situation, the elves would instead like to know the total calories carried by the top 3 elves carrying the most calories. So example above, the top 3 elves are the 4th elf, the 3rd elf, and the 5th elf. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna change our answer here. So instead of doing this whole funness, we're actually just gonna take our elf thing here, and we're just gonna sort this. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna allow us to do a lap of this, get 0, and then we can just simply do another lap here, and we can just add up the top 3. So 0, 1, and 2. We don't have to find it, we can just sort it, and because it's sorted, it will naturally have the largest 3 will be in the first. This is backwards though. Ooh. Can I? Is not gonna reverse? Okay, so let's do this then. Because it's going to be A and B. B minus A. I gotta flip it around to get our answer. There we go. Because we wanted descending order. Hey! How close were even the leaderboards? I'm gonna guess pretty far off. It's top 1,000, not bad. Anyways, though, wasn't the point of this. Part 1, there we go. Part 1 is done. Wasn't too bad. Usually, again, the first day is not too bad. If you're new to programming and you're just starting out, this one isn't, it's not really a hard problem at all. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a quick second. I'm just gonna clean my code up. So again, I wrote this really quickly. I wasn't thinking too far ahead about anything, so I'm gonna quickly clean this up just a bit, and then we're gonna go through and I'm gonna explain the first and second part. This really is explaining one part, because if you do one, in this case, you do one, you do the other. It's not that big. So 1 minute, I'll be right back. Alrighty, we really actually didn't clean up much looking back at it. I just kind of, I made this a little bit more verbose, but that's just, you'll see in a bit. So yeah, didn't really clean much up, but anyways, so today's problem, if we go back to it, is we are given our input, which is this big long list of elves and the number of calories they are carrying by each item. So this elf has an item with this many calories, and whatnot. So this is one elf. These are individual items that's carrying and the calorie amounts of that item. Our task for this day, is to go through each elf, and for part 1, find the elf carrying the most total calories. The second part is then to find the top 3 elves and add them all up together. Because those are more or less the same thing, I'm gonna kind of cover them both together here. The first step is to take our input, which is again this long list here of either a number or a blank line. With that, we can iterate over each line, and if we have a blank line, we know we've reached the end of this elf's carrying capacity. We increment a number here, which I'll talk about in a second, and then continue on, basically skipping the rest of the logic, because it's not a number, it's a blank line, just end it there. If we get to a line where there is a number, what we first want to do is see if we have a space for this elf already assigned in our list. So first step is to take all of these and condense them down to one singular number. And the way we do that is we basically have this running list here of our elf calories, and as we get to a new one, first we gotta check if we have the index already assigned. In this case, if it's the first value, we do not, so we can just add a 0 because we're starting at 0 for the elf's calories. Otherwise though, what we do is we just parse the int of our current line, so in this case 547, take the current number of calories that we have we've summed up so far, and then add them together and then set that elf's calorie count to that amount, which again is just the index of our list. So for this first one here, we have index 0 because it's our zeroth elf, because remember we start 0. Our 0th elf, that's hard to say, we get 547, so we now add 0 because we start 0 to 547, so they are carrying 547 calories. Get to the next number, we can now add 547 to 4920. Next line, we can add whatever this sums up to, add on 3981, and so on and so forth till we hit this new line, in which case we increment our elf number up by 1, which then starts this process of the next elf to sum it up at the next index in our list here. Once that process is done for the rest of the input file, what we go through is then we go ahead and sort that list of numbers from largest to smallest, which is why we're doing B minus A. We want the largest number at the top and the smallest number at the bottom. What that allows us to do then is we now have the elf carrying the most amount of calories at the 0th index, and that is the first answer that it is looking for 500 to code. The second part is then looking for the summation of the top 3 elves, and because we've already sorted our list, what we can do is we can just do elf 0 plus elf index 1 plus elf index 2, so those are the top 3 largest calorie counts elves that are holding, and that's our answer. So there we go. Again, day 1 here, I explained this a little more in depth than I will usually do it, just because this one is a little simpler, and I do want to make sure that this is a little more covering for newer developers who might not fully understand all this. As the puzzles get harder and harder each day, I'll be getting less in depth in the explanations. I'll be kind of doing more high level overview, but again, for day 1, I want to explain this a little more in depth just to help out newer developers who might not quite understand everything. But at any rate, day 1 is complete. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys all tomorrow for day 2. Peace out.